welcome back to Alex's Custom Garage, Built Not Bought. Hey, in the last episode, we were talking about building a custom gauge bezel with a custom center console. Well, today's the day, so I just want to walk through what I'm envisioning. I'm really good at, what I want it to look like, and also building it on the fly. So, let's get started and build a really badass custom gauge bezel with the center console. So, I wanted to come back and have the factory, not the look, but I wanted to come back to the e-brake console. So, I know that to begin with, I'm going to have to be about, we're going to say 5.5 inches wide. So we'll just put 5.5. And then we know up here, I want it to be somewhere, probably up in the crease up here, somewhere around where the bracket is there. So we're going to say, 10 inches. So that's going to get me my taper that I need. And then we're just going to go from here all the way back to about where the taper is going to be. We're going to say that's, we're going to say 25 inches. That'll get us started. So, I want to make sure I go, obviously I have to go around the shifter. The gauge bezel is going to come out and go back. So I'm going to have 6 gauges here, 2, 4, and 6. There's going to be an aux beam right here with the window switches installed. So, and it's all going to be carbon fiber. So it's going to look really badass. So let's get started. All right, now the fun begins. Now we actually get to build this thing. But we're going to be using some really cool tools, and to show you how to properly lay things out, we got some Dykem, which is a really good friend of mine. A center punch for finding the center, getting the center of a hole, a handy dandy center drill, and something I live and die by, which is my calipers, which I can scribe some lines really cool. We're going to be going through that here in just a little bit. But right now I'm going to zoom in, and we're going to show you how I got there. I went ahead and laid this thing out so you're not watching me draw some lines. So remember down here, we got the 5.5 inches wide, it's 25 inches long, and we got 10 inches up here. So I went ahead and did my 5.5 inches. I divided the 5.5 by 2, which is 2.75, 2 3/4, and I got me a center line. That way I would know exactly where to go off the center line up here. If not, if you're just kind of guessing, it's really going to be, crooked. So from here over is 5, from here over is 5. Now we're actually going to get to building. I'm going to make this thing out of 3/4 square tubing, because that's what I have in stock. And I always recommend when you're building something, how you utilize what you have. So now we're going to build a frame out of 3/4 square tubing. And the whole idea is, this is the center console that was in the car. I don't like the way it looks. It's not going to look good with the shifter, etc. Plus I want something carbon fiber and looks good. So you can kind of see it's going to emulate the same size, the same shape, etc., but it's going to look a lot better when we get done. So let's get to building. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut a couple of pieces. We're going to cut a couple at 25 and a couple at 5.5, just so we can get to start building. Let's cut away. It's always important whenever you get done cutting to make sure that you deburr the ends. I'm going to go ahead and tack it to the table. And then also, because it's tapered, I want to make sure that the ends of this are good and tapered, so it's a nice, good fit. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything tacked up, get it tacked to the table, and then we'll go for the next part. All right, so now we got the base fit up. We got it welded up and all blended. So now we're going to go ahead and cut it loose from the table, and we're going to see how it fits. So let's get to work. All right, so now we got it dry fitted. You can see it fits really good. It's all the way to the front like we want, and it's a good clean fit back here. Now we're just going to say, okay, how high do we want it? I want to be right where the carbon fiber, when we get done doing the carbon fiber, I want it to be right here at the bottom edge. So to get the exact measurement, we're just going to put something flat. We're going to see what we got to be. Looks like 1 3/4. So we're going to go back to the table. All right, so remember I talked about I need to get 1 3/4 inches, which will be to the bottom of the shifter. So I had some 1-inch tubing in stock, which works as a great spacer. So I cut some spacers, 1 inch. Then I'm going to use my 3/4 inch tubing that I already have. So with the 1 inch and the 3/4 inch tubing, I'm going to have my exact 1 3/4. So I'm just going to build another frame just like this on the top, and then we'll be ready to go. Because we're building a riser, you want to make sure that the riser is really flush with the base. So all I did was put a square up, push it right up against the square, tacker on both sides. Now you're good and flush. Now we got the top on, we want to make sure that the top is totally square. So all I did was push the square up against it, just like so. And we're just going to tack it. We're going to do that all the way around. Alright, so now we just want to make sure that we're flush. So we're just checking to make sure that we're flush with the bottom and we're flush with the top. Now you can see we are within probably a 32nd of an inch there, and we're touching both top and bottom there. So it's really good. So that's going to go fit it and make sure that our height is right, and then we'll be buttoning her up. Alright, so I know right now you're thinking, what in the hell is he doing? Well, you got to wait to the end. It's really going to pop. But right now we just want to make sure that our height, because you got to remember the whole thing is going to be covered in carbon fiber when we're done. So I wanted to make sure that I got my height right, because I want the carbon fiber to come right to the bottom of this shifter, the carbon fiber shifter. So it's all going to look really badass. So you can see we are very, very, very close. So it all worked out. So now on to the next step. We're going to cap the ends off, and then we're going to go ahead and put a brace up here and then a brace in the back. So we can go ahead and get it fastened to the floorboard, and then we got to cut out our switch holes, and then start working on the gauge bezel, which is up here, which is really going to be badass. So on to the next step. All right, now that we have our height right, I'm going to go ahead and get it ready for the install, just to get a roughed in install. So I'm going to cap the ends off, both, get them all flushed up, get everything all welded and everything blended. I'm going to go ahead and put me a bracket down here to go to the floorboard, and a bracket up here to go to the floorboard. And then we'll be ready to set it into place, and then get all the switches and et cetera, mounted. So on to the next step. All right, now we got the frame done. It's not mounted yet, but we got all the mounting brackets in. Next, we want to tie the console into the gauge bezel. So this is the factory gauge bezel. It's like that. We're not going to use it, but we're going to use the frame. But you can see how it's tapered back. So we're going to get rid of all of this, and I'm just going to use the frame because I like the way it fits. So it's going to be about 7 by 7, about 7 across, then about 7 deep before it hits the ductwork. And then back here, then we're going to have to go down, we're going to have to break it at an angle, but we want it wide in the back. So we're going to guess about probably 10.5 to 11 inches wide. So we're going to say then it's going to be 11 inches at the back. So total we need to be 18 inches in length. So let's get to cutting and building. Now we're going to take a perfectly good gauge bezel from the 78 Corvette, and we're going to hog it out because we really just need this frame. So we're just going to need this frame, and everything else is going to go. So I'm getting ready to cut it out. So next step, we're going to get to cutting. All right, so now I'm done cutting. I just used a grinding wheel with a cutoff wheel, and I just hogged out all the plastic, and then I just took the roll-out disc and cleaned everything up. So this is the shell that we're going to use. So we've got to remember this is going to be all carbon fiber, so it's going to look really good, but it fits really good. So next we want to go ahead and bend the piece of sheet metal that's going to go on here, and that's the 11 by 7 or 11 by 18, which we're going to do right now. So you got to remember, a lot of this is, built not bought, so you really want to use the material that you have in your shop. So I got a scrap piece of aluminum sheet here that I'm going to go ahead and use for my backing. So I went ahead and marked it out, the 11 by 18. So I'm going to get to cutting. All right, so we went ahead and laid it out. So we got it exactly 11 by 18. We went ahead and took the 11, divided in half, which is 5.5, which is from here to here. Drew the center line all the way up. So you remember we want 7 in the front, so we went ahead and this is going to be our cutout area, and this is going to be the break line where it's going to be broke in the back. So time to get cutting and building the final piece. All right, so now I got it cut out, and you can see this is the part that's going to go on top of the gauge bezel, and we're going to break this because this is what the actual gauges are going to bolt to. So time to hit the press brake. Now we're going to bend the back, so I got the 7-inch already inside the finger brake. And now we just want to make sure that we're square, which we are. Now we're going to give her a little bend. Remember, we don't need to go a straight 90 because it was already tapered. That's what we got. All right, so now we got it in. You can see it fits really good. This is all going to be carbon fiber. It's the gauges will be straight down here. So remember, we are at an angle, so we couldn't quite break it at a 90. So now we're going to go ahead and take it out. We're going to lay it out with the Dykem and get the holes all drilled for the 6 gauges that are going to go in there. So now it's time to have some fun with some Dykem and layout tools. All right, so this is a Dykem. It's a layout spray. So all we're going to do is spray it on here. It dries pretty quick, and it's going to be great for laying everything out. So I'm going to let it dry, put on a couple coats, and then we're going to get to lay everything out for the gauges. Went ahead and drew a line from where the 7-inch is to where the bottom of the gauge bezel is going to be, so it's a nice tapered fit. So we got the gauges. We got 6 gauges total. So I want to be 2, and then it's going to taper on the way back. So the gauges are kind of going to follow the same line as here, and they're not just all going to be symmetric. It's just going to be really cool looking. So now we got to find the center line for all the gauges and go from there. All right, this is where it gets a little complicated, so I'm going to try and break it down and make it easy as I can. So we got our center line. So the gauge is 2 5/8. I always use decimals because I like using my dial calipers, which is 2.625. So we want to get the center line of that. Half of the 2.625 is 1 5/16, which is 1.312, 1 5/16. So I don't want to be exactly flush with the top, and I don't want to be flush with the side. I want about a 3/4 inch offset. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get our center line for right here for where the gauges are going to be. Now remember, I want the gauges perfectly in line like this at an angle. So we're going to add the 1.1 5/16 with a 3/4 is going to give us 2.062, which I'll show you on the dial calipers, or 2 1/16. So I just take the 2-inch mark. We go ahead and go to 2 inches and 0.62. About right there, okay? Then I went ahead and put my rule down here. And the really good thing about the Dykem, watch this. You put your calipers down, and you just follow the line all the way down. That is going to be the center line for my gauges going in this direction. All right, so this is the center line, and this is the center line for the gauges. So we want to be about the same distance from the front and the back. So all we're going to do is put our calipers up here, and then we're just going to draw a line, just like that. Same thing over here. That's going to be our dead center for, that's going to be the center line for our gauge, for the first gauge, and then everything is going to go after that. All right, so now we're going to find our center line for all of the gauges. So you remember the gauge is 2 5/8, so half of that is 1 5/16. I want about a 3/4 inch gap in between the gauges, that way they're not really close. And then the center line from that to the other gauge, it's going to be 3.374, just say 3 3/8, which is 3.375. So I went ahead and set my calipers to 3 3/8. Now all we're going to do is go from the center line of the one to the other, which is about right there. We're going to go to the center line, about right there. Then we're going to go to the center line, about right there. Then we're going to go to the center line, about right there. That's going to be our center lines for our gauges. All right, so now we're going to take a center punch, and that puts an indentation in the center of the hole. So we just go to the center, bam, bam, bam. Then when I get done doing this, that's going to give me a good spot for my center drill. So now the center drill will go right in where that center punch was. See that? All right, so now we're going to drill some holes for the gauges. So you can see how they're all going to be good in a line. Fits good, fits good. This one may need a little deburr. Nope. So you can see how now they're all going to be at an angle. So we're going to have 3 all the way down and 3 all the way down. All right, so we got all the holes in. Getting ready to do everything in the carbon fiber. Now you can see the gist is starting to come together. We're going to use the outside of the bezel. This is all going to be carbon fiber with the gauges. This is all going to be carbon fiber, and then all of this is going to be carbon fiber, etc. So now you're seeing it starting to come together. It's like, you know, hey, what the hell was he doing? Getting ready to be badass. Stay tuned. I'm just using this as a template. So I put the template down, went ahead and outlined it. This is exactly how the gauges are going to look. This is carbon fiber. So I'm going to go ahead and drill all these 2 5/8 with the same hole saw that I did. And then the carbon fiber cover is going to go on here with the gauges. Then it's all going to come together. So now it's key, before we actually start drilling, you need to find the exact center line, because if you're off a little bit, the gauge is going to be off and it's going to look like Fido's ass. So we really want to make sure that we're straight. So I just took half the 2 5/8, which is 1 5/16, 1.312. I'm going to put it right on the edge of the circle. I use the Dykem on the carbon fiber sheet, and then we're just going to draw a straight little line. We're going to go 90 degrees, and that is my center mark. Being careful not to do the paper too much. And that's my center line. Okay. All right, so we got the gauge bezel all cut out in the carbon fiber. Overlay is really good. We're going to go ahead and put the gauges in. Going to go ahead and put a piece of carbon fiber right here. So the next step, you're going to see the gauge bezel done in carbon fiber. Hang tight, baby. All right, so we got the gauge cluster in. You can see how they're nice and lined up. Everything is good and symmetric. So now what we got to do is finish up the console, get everything bolted up and get everything wired up. But now you can start to see the Envision. Now here on the sides, I'm going to carbon fiber this on the sides to where everything is going to be looking really good. Up here in the front, I really want to put a stereo, but now I don't think I have room for the stereo. I might have to put it in the glove box, etc. Back here, I'm going to put the window switches right here, so I got to build a little bracket for the window switches, and then aux beam is going to go right here. Aux beam is what's going to control the entire system, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But now at least you can see it starting to come together. We got the gauge bezel in, carbon fiber, looks really badass. Also, if you pan up a little bit to the motor, on the back of the blower, I'm going to have a boost gauge, and I'm going to have a boost gauge and also an air fuel mixture. The air fuel mixture is going to go to the exhaust. That way I can see exactly what I'm running at all times. So you can see how bad of a picture that is. Big old blower motor sitting right there, baby. All right, we're getting close. All right, so now we need to put the window switches in and the aux beam. An aux beam is kind of like a race pack. It's the generic one. So I'll be able to control everything with just a push button, the ignition, fuel pump, everything. And then also the window switches. So I want the window switch, the bezel, I want it to be even because this is all going to be carbon fiber. So you can see I don't have much room right here, so I got to find a piece of material that's maybe a 1/4 inch thick. Got to see if I have that in stock. If not, I'm going to have to modify something. And then I want the aux beam to go in front of it, really close, and I want the aux beam to be flush. That way when I put my carbon fiber in, or just a little bit above, so when I put the carbon fiber over it, it's going to be flush and it's going to fit in really good. So let's go to the stockpile and see what we have and see if we're going to have to modify something or if I might get lucky and I might have something that's going to fit. All right, so this is a steel rack. This is stuff that I've collected throughout the years. So I need to find something that's kind of thin and that I can use, this might work. I'll have to cut it down. But I do have a piece of, looks like 3/8 by 3/8 or 1/4 by 1/4. This will probably work really good for the switches and maybe also for the aux beam. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some of this up and see if we can make it work. All right, to speed the video up, I went ahead and put the brackets in. You've seen all the fabricating we've done so far. So I went ahead and got the window switches in. They're going to be like that. The bezel is going to be flush with the carbon fiber. Also got the bracket in for the aux beam. So the aux beam is going to go right here. It's going to go good and flush. So when we put the carbon fiber over it, it's all going to be good and flush. So the next step, we have to get everything mounted. I have to get everything covered in carbon fiber and get everything wired. So the next video you're going to see where it's going to be installed with all the carbon fiber on it and ready to go. So now you're seeing the fruits of our merit. So hang tight, baby. All right, so hey, now we got it done. Well, 90% done, but you can get the gist of the look that I was going for. And my baby girl likes it, don't you, honey? So anyway, we got the carbon fiber console done with the carbon fiber shifter, the carbon fiber gauges in here. Got a little bit of carbon fiber to do on the sides right here, but you can see the look that I was going after. So it really looks badass. I got the aux beam installed, even room for my switches. Got a little bit of trim to do with some carbon fiber pieces that I got. Little trim here, but all in all, that's what we want. Hey, thanks for watching. You know, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. The next, we're going to be putting up a blower boost gauge and the air fuel mixture in the back of the blower so I can see it when I'm hauling ass. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys. Go fast.